Hello, everybody. Welcome to AddWrk, Not Worries podcast. Hey, everyone who's been listening, we appreciate you. We really do. And if you've gotten anything, any useful information, anything that's shareable from the podcast, please take 3 seconds, click that little share button, share it with your friends, or take 7 seconds, 7 to 12 seconds, give us a 5-star rating. If you appreciated the content we're delivering. We're bringing you content. We're never asking for anything. We just want you to share and rate and enjoy, and that's all we ask for. So, we want to give a lot of content. We want it to be useful content. If you can rate, if you can share, along with the rating, if you could add a few nice words, that helps boost us in the rankings, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Let me get my brain together for a second. It would really help us. Again, that's you. We appreciate you. Wisdom Wednesday. I like Wisdom Wednesday. I don't want it to sound too high and mighty. Wisdom Wednesday is really just me sharing with you my lived experiences and or useful information that I've gathered along the way. That is what I would call my wisdom. It doesn't mean there's not alternative information out there that may be better. But this is my truth, and I'm sharing it with you on Wednesdays. Today I have a special one. As I mentioned before, I plan to do a real estate investment series. Now, this is going to be a real estate investment series that I do, and it's going to be from inception in, whether you've just thought about doing real estate and want to get your feet wet, whether you have zero cash, whether you have cash, whether you're in the trades, whether you're not in the trades, whether you maybe just have money and don't want to be on the operational side of the real estate investing and you just want to help invest. We're going to start there. We're going to move on. We're going to move on to, once you decide what you want to do, how do you acquire a property? How do you go about searching for properties? There's different ways to do it. How do you procure an agent? Once you get a property in contract, what do you do? What are the things you can do with a property that's in contract? Once you decide what you're going to do with it, what do you do from there? If you decide you're going to build it, how do you even build? What do you do? How do you get a site topographic survey so you can go to an architect and get plans drawn? How do you decide how to choose an architect or a designer or whoever's going to design the home? Are you going to do a new construction? Are you just going to flip the home? If you flip the home, to what extent are you going to do it? If you're adding on an addition to get extra square footage and add price, how are you going to do that, and what's that going to look like, and what's the best way to do that? And then once you get into construction, how are you going to save cost? How are you going to save time? How are you going to save money? What are your core strengths? And how are you going to make sure that you stay on budget? And then once you go to sell, how are you going to identify an agent? What's the best agent to work with? How do you think about price points? How do you analyze price points when looking at historical data? And then on exit, after you sell, what are you going to do with your profits? What are the tax implications? Are you going to roll it into another property? Are you going to keep doing this? Was this a one-off? So many things. I probably missed some. That's all going to be in the series I share for free. And it doesn't lead to anything. It's just knowledge that I'm dropping. I'm not selling a course. They're so cringy. I'm not about that. But all I ask is that you share this podcast so it gets out to people. I'm going to give content that's fire, but share it, please. Today, on that real estate vein with Wisdom Wednesday, it struck me that I want to discuss why I think 2025, my prediction is it's a great time to buy a home, whether it's a home that maybe you don't own a home, and if you can somehow figure out how to buy a home, I think it's a great time. I know interest rates are high, and I'm going to discuss that. Whether you're looking to buy an investment property or get into a property that you're going to build, flip, spec, whatever, maybe it's a rental, I think there's benefits to all of this, and I'll discuss why 2025, in my opinion, is a great time to buy a home. Let's jump into that. The interest rates, as we know, are at historic highs. Let's not say historic highs, because I know what everyone's going to say. Well, the boomers are going to say, I remember when interest rates were 18%. That's great. I don't. I remember when interest rates were 2%. So, historic highs relevant to me in the last 20 years. Let's say that. I think last I looked, they were teetering over 7%, even though we've had a couple cuts by the Fed. Interest rates are still hanging up there for a multitude of reasons. I'm not going to get into the structural reasons as to why interest rates are high. I'm just going to discuss the reality of them being high and what that means and why I think it creates a unique opportunity right now if you can capitalize on it. And I don't want the haters to say, well, yeah, that's easy to say if you can go out and get a mortgage at 7%. I can't afford that. Home prices are high. Yes, yes, and yes. However, if there's any ways you can do it, whether you're pooling with other people, whether you're finding alternative sources of financing where you're paying a little more. I know it's not always a matter of just go to a bank, give them your W-2, and they're going to approve you for anything. I know there's standards surrounding this, and we can talk about financing another time. If you can figure it out, I think 2025 is a great time to jump in, and I'll tell you the details now. First, let me give you some data. A $1 million mortgage when rates were lower, and I'm gonna use 2 data points for my examples. One data point is going to be when rates were at 3.75%, which I know many people who still have 3.75 and sub 3.75 mortgages. Yes, it pisses me off. My best friend has a 2.8 mortgage, and as I sit in my home paying 6.6%, I just cringe, and I have to swallow it. But it's okay, because if I follow my own data here and my own theory, it's gonna be all right. $1 million mortgage and when I say $1 million mortgage, that's after your down payment. So let's say it's a $1.2 million home, and the mortgage you're gonna carry is $1 million. At 3.75%, that monthly payment on a $1 million mortgage is $4,631 at 3.75%. So remember that. $1 million mortgage, $4,631. I'm going to take that same $1 million mortgage at 7% even. Now the monthly payment on that $1 million mortgage at 7% even, $6,653. So that's $6,653, which is essentially $2,000 more than when rates were at 3.75%. So you can see the picture I'm painting here is rates make a huge difference. I'm also going to give you the data points on a $500,000 mortgage so we can get 2 price points. Many areas of the country, $1 million mortgage is not crazy. A median home price is approaching $1 million. I mean, it's in the 7s, 8s in a lot of areas, some places over, but $1 million mortgage is not out of the question in many metropolitan, many coastal, many areas for a basic starter home. But let's use a $500,000 example. A $500,000 mortgage, again, that's the mortgage amount. So let's say you're buying a house for $650 and putting $150 down, maybe. $500,000 is the mortgage. At 3.75, $2,315 is your monthly payment. That $500,000 mortgage at 7%, $3,326. That's a difference of the 2 mortgages and about $1,000. Now I want to highlight that makes a huge difference in your pool of buyers. And here's why. When you have $1 million mortgage, first I'll use that. Typically banks want to lend at 30% of your gross income is the max they want to lend you on a mortgage. Now, that can be a lot different if you, again, like I said, it's not always about going to a bank, but most people do traditional financing, so I'm using that example as prime. You can go to private money. Private money, you'll pay a little more interest rate, but they're willing to go higher on the percentages they're willing to lend you. There's also alternative lenders out there all over the place that will lend you money not solely based on your W-2 income, but maybe business income or other alternative income. They'll take a lot of factors, how much money you have in the bank into account. You can also look at getting a cosigner that'll help raise your debt to income levels because that person's on the loan if you have someone that can help you qualify. There's all these scenarios that you can creatively finance and you can get help from others. You may not have that, and if you don't, great. I mean, there's always the future. I'm talking about the right now. So at 30% of your income, and that's gross income that a typical lender will lend you, a $1 million mortgage, if you are at that 3.75% number that I told you before, in order to afford that $4,631 payment, 30% is you have to make $15,436 in gross income a month. So you take the formula is simple. If your gross income is $15,436 a month, 30% of that, $4,631, you qualify for $1 million loan at 3.75%. That's the math. What that means on an annual basis is you need to make $185,240 exactly to get that mortgage. Now, either that's you as an individual, or that's you and a spouse, you and a partner, whatever it may be, however you're structuring your finances, that's the number you have to hit to get that mortgage. And that is, that's the number you have to hit to hit that mortgage. Now, at 7%, the $6,653 mark, you have to make $22,176 a month at 30% to afford $6,653 of a mortgage. Now you can see the difference is 3.75%, you need 15 grand a month and some change. 7%, you need 22,000 a month and some change. We're getting into some like pretty high, thin air with that number. That 22,000 equates to an annual salary or an annual income of $266,120. So the difference in that $1 million mortgage at 3.75 to 7% is making $266,000 or $185,000, which basically means that $266, you're adding another salary. This is how much rates matter, and I'm getting to why this matters. At the I just want to give you the data first. At the $500,000 price point, the at 3.75%, the $2,315 mortgage requires you make $7,716 a month, leading to an annual income of $92,600. Many areas of the country, that's a starter dual income, $92,600. Other areas, that could be a solo income depending on what field you're in, but highly affordable in a lot of areas. $77,616 is what you need to make gross a month. At 7%, that $500,000 mortgage requires you make $11,086 or $133,040 annually. So you can see a big jump there. 7%, you need $11,000 a month. 3.75, $7,000 a month. A $4,000 difference monthly, an annual difference of over $40,000 in order to afford that 7% mortgage. Now, this is why I think it's a great time to buy in 2025. In all of these pools, there's buyers that can't afford property. Real estate is at historic lows when it comes to supply. So prices have held steady. There's not as big of a pool of buyers, but there are still a lot of buyers and increasingly more and more buyers coming into the market. And it's supported by higher salaries than we've seen historically. So with these new buyers coming into the market, the existing buyers in the market, and the existing pool of homes being desperately low, there's buyers in every category. There's buyers for $1 million mortgage that are making $266,000 and can afford 7%. There's buyers for a $500,000 mortgage that are making $133,000 and can afford $3,300 a month at 7%. And then there's buyers in the lower tier categories as well. But one thing I know, and one thing that the data will show, buyers do not buy based on home price. Let me say this again. This is really important, and it may be counterintuitive to what you think, but it is the rock solid truth. Buyers, people buying homes, do not buy based on the price of the home. They don't look at the home and say, my price point is 1 million, and if there's a home I want that's 1.2, I'm not going to buy it because it's 1.2. Let me tell you why. Buyers buy homes solely 100% based on what they can afford on a monthly basis, what they've been pre-approved for. So, and typically 95% of the time, they buy homes to the maximum of what they're approved to afford. Now, I'm not talking about the luxury real estate realm here, so I want to take that out of the equation. The realm that I'm talking about is this starter home / mid-tier home purchase. Buyers make their decision on buying a home strictly based on what they can afford on a monthly basis. That's it. That's concrete. What they can afford on a monthly basis, and typically they're going to max out that dollar amount because they want to get as much home as they can for that dollar amount. So, this is why I think if you can get in, 2025 is a great time to buy. It's because interest rates are going to come down. The Fed has started its descent. It's going to continue its descent. You're going to see in the news cycle this, that, or the other about, this is how inflation is looking. The economy's strong. The job numbers are strong. Maybe the Fed isn't going to descend. Look at the Fed's projected chart. The Fed, within the next 2 years, wants to be back in that 4% territory. And depending on what happens in the economy, maybe even lower. So using this 3.75% might not be realistic. Maybe rates only go down to 4.5%, 4%. But let me also explain this. Even if the Fed gets into the rate territory of the low 4s, that doesn't, mortgage rates don't necessarily go hand in hand with exactly where the Fed's at. So they can vary and they can go lower. Let me give you the example of right now. The Fed has had multiple rate cuts and rates have actually gone higher. I don't predict that continues. But they don't go hand in hand. That's a whole nother series we can talk about mortgage rate fluctuations. And honestly, I'm not an expert on that, but maybe I'll bring someone on the podcast to discuss that in more detail. I would actually enjoy that. But the buying opportunity is, if you can get in at these 7% mortgages now, what those 7% mortgages are doing are artificially lowering the price of homes. Even though homes are holding their value, it's lowering the buyer pool, and they're making homes that could have gone up even higher not go up as exponentially as they could. So what's going to happen because buyers buy based on their monthly payment, not based on the price of the home, is as rates start to go down, the price of and value of homes are going to go up. It's inevitable, because as rates go down and buyers still have the same buying capacity on a monthly basis, the price of the home is going to go up in accordance with what they can afford. That's what the market does. That's what the free market does. And I want to give some examples. And I just used a couple numbers to show you the potential, but this is very real. And I'll have to say, in the short term, the 7% is going to suck. Just like my 6.6 sucks for me in the short term. But I have long-term vision. And I know that there's options for me when the prices of homes go up and the rates go down. And I'll get into those options in a minute. But if you are able to take advantage of that $1 million loan at 7%, paying $6,653 a month today, right now, go buy that home. Let's say in 2 years from now, or even 1 year from now, rates go down back to this 375 number. And I'm sorry I'm using 375, it might be slightly higher, which might make these fluctuate a touch. But let's say we're back to this 375 territory sometime in the somewhat near future. That $1 million loan at 7%, causing you to pay $6,600 a month. Well, now a $1.4 million loan at 3.75 is a $6,483 payment. So what that means is at $1 million loan at 7%, that means the house is worth, 1.2 after down payment, but let's just use the $1 million number. You're paying $6,600 a month. When rates go down and now your loan is 1.4 million, your monthly payment at 3.75 is actually $200 less than the $6,600 you were paying. So what that means is a new buyer on the market is willing to come in, and the home that you have $1 million mortgage on that you probably paid 1.2, that person's likely to come in and be willing to, based on the monthly payment they can afford, because if you afford $6,600, there's many other buyers that can afford $6,600. They're willing to carry a mortgage of 1.4 million on the property, and they're going to pay $2,000 less, but they're pre-approved for that $6,600. So the property that you have $1 million mortgage on and paid 1.2 for is inherently now worth 1.6 or 1.7. Because if you're talking a 20% down payment, gets you to, a 1.7 price point, 20% of that, $340, that gives you roughly a $1.4 million mortgage, paying $6,400 a month, compared to when I bought it or you bought it right now, you have $1 million mortgage at $6,600 a month. Well, what did you just do? Do you follow here? You just made $400,000 to $500,000 only because you're playing the interest rate game. And if we look at the $500,000 mortgage, the $500,000 mortgage you're carrying at 7%, $3,326. The second rates go back to 3.75. That monthly payment supports a $750,000 mortgage. So $500,000 at 7%, $3,326. $750,000 at 3.75%, $3,476. Yes, $100 more. Many buyers in that category. So if we're using the 20% down payment rule here, that's a quick math, $900 and something thousand home. 20%, you get down to a $750,000 mortgage. On your $500K home, you probably paid $6,000 and then put a down payment. So the home value went from $600,000 and you have a $500,000 mortgage to low to mid 900s, and this person's carrying a $750,000 mortgage, but because rates are low, their payment's the same as what you're paying at 7%. Well, now you just went from $600,000 to mid nines, $300,000 to $350,000 profit, strictly playing the interest rate game. Interest rates go down, property values go up. People buy based on what they can afford on a monthly basis. People buy based on what they can afford on a monthly basis. People buy based on what they can afford on a monthly basis. That is why 2025 is the year. And if you're looking to do it from a speculative perspective or a flipping perspective, I don't think you can flip these quick and turn and burn. You might be able to make a little money. I think this is more of a buy and hold scenario, whether you live in it. And everybody, there's tax benefits. If you buy something, you may not know this. If you live in it for 2 years, the federal government gives you as an individual $250,000 tax-free once you sell on the profits, or a married couple or partnership, $500,000 tax-free for the two of you, tax-free once you sell, if you live in it 2 out of 5 years. That's very important. That's the property ladder you could start rolling through. Discuss that later, maybe in the real estate series we're going to put together. But there is some real opportunity for eating a high interest rate and paying a higher payment than you want to right now in the short term, and some big profits in the not too far away term, if you're willing to and if you can capitalize on jumping into the game right now. 2025, the year to buy real estate. Interest rates suck, not gonna suck forever. Get in and get some big rewards. Thank you.